Hello, I'm the Eternal Newbie. The extra L is for Lamentation. Lamentation because we have 3 tales of players who lamented playing with their group. In 2 of them, the DM is the problem, and as you know, no one makes a problem like a bad DM. The other story stars that guy. You know the one, we've all met him, or at least heard of him. Before we get to it, please leave a like if you feel so inclined, or even if you don't. It's greatly appreciated. Plus, they are fodder for the almighty algorithm. Alright, let's get to it. This happened years ago. A group of friends and I were playing with a young DM who wanted to dictate exactly how each session went. He was also fond of trying to kill us by stacking one difficult encounter right after another. So by the second encounter, we'd be out of potions, spells, and so on. And we'd be low on hit points. And he hated magic-based characters, so he declared before each campaign that the campaign was low magic, which tended to make it hard for those of us who like to play magic-based characters, such as the clerics among us. One campaign, he added an NPC warrior to our party, making the party a total of 6. We were okay with that. We should not have been. During one session, our party encountered a troll with a huge club. The way the DM so lovingly described the troll, and especially the club in minute detail, emphasizing how impressively large and threatening the club was, should have been a clue to the DM's intentions. The troll was initially aggressive, but my character had high charisma, and I was able to get some decent dice rolls, so I was successfully talking the troll out of attacking us. This did not suit our DM. When it was clear we weren't going to have a fight, because I was very persuasive, the DM had his NPC warrior say, "Fudge this," and attack the troll. The warrior got 2-shotted. The rest of the party waded into the fight since the troll was now angry and attacking us. The troll one-shotted the rest of us. Dice rolls were high for the troll and abysmal for the players. We were all deeply angry at the total party wipe and asked the DM, "WTF?" The DM confessed he deliberately made the troll in the club overpowered. It was a +3 because he wanted to see how well our party would do in that fight. And that's why he had his NPC attack the troll, because it was clear he wasn't going to get a fight otherwise, given my high charisma and excellent rolls. He also said he didn't expect the dice rolls to be so high for his troll and so low for the rest of us. We all told him we would never play again, with him as DM, and nobody did, except me, the sucker, who made the mistake of falling for his begging and pleading for another chance. Yeah, he never changed and never did redeem himself. So, despite the fact there's a DMPC where none is needed, the DM decided that wasn't enough of a dick move. Oh no, he had to put in a giant unstoppable troll, who, by the way, was actually the second troll the party encountered that session, the first being the DM himself. You know, he put the troll in there with its big stick because he wishes he had a big stick. Probably why he spent so much time describing it. Stick envy. He created an encounter with a creature that could one-shot each party member, then force the party to fight it. Then put on his surprise Pikachu face when it TPK'd the party. Actually, that was probably a mercy, as in the party never had to play with the DM again. So the troll, the real one, not the DM, was the real hero of the story. Let's see what's next. So, back when I worked in food service, I had made a few friends. They knew I played Dungeons & Dragons and wanted to give it a try. I mentioned since most of them were new, I'd be running a module that would start everyone at level 1 so they can get to know their PCs and ease into their roles. Then, there was that guy. I did not invite him to my game at any point. He got an invitation by asking our boss, who was also in the game, and boss decided to bring him in. While I was trying to enjoy my lunch break, that guy decided it was the best time to come shove his phone in my face and look over his character sheet. Ignoring the stats, I looked over the sheet and raised an eye. "So, why do you have 2 classes in here? We're starting at level 1. "Oh, well, that's just what I want to build towards." "And why do you have a magic item in there?" "Goggles of night vision." "Well, my race doesn't have dark vision, so that would fix it." "We're starting at level 1 with basic equipment. You wouldn't have any magical items." Well, I'm a rogue, so maybe I stole it from a powerful artificer. Rogue was the secondary class, for the record. We're starting at level 1. Okay, fine. Well, can I at least have a friend in my backstory? At this point, I was relieved. This was the first normal thing he'd asked for. Of course. Awesome! And can you introduce me on the back of a Pegasus? You are level 1. Paladins don't get that until level 10. He seemed grumpy with me for not agreeing to 99% of his character idea, but left me alone with only 5 minutes left to scarf down my lunch. I kinda purposely picked the time slot so that he couldn't join in. No reason to worry about a problem player if their scheduling won't let them join. But, dear reader, while I avoided having them as a player at my table, it didn't stop him from bugging me at work. Even after I quit. You see, I had forgotten his in-real-life class was Bard, College of Harassment. After he managed to not get into my games, he always asked me things then to try to get me to agree with him. Like, he thought a prince that always tried to openly slaughter his brother was considered lawful evil because he wants to be the king. He tried to pay me to paint his minis for him as I put my notice in. Then, asked if I wanted to go to the local game store with him. Then, tried to push me to get into his car when I told him no. I didn't have a car at the time. Thankfully, my dad was picking me up then. So, for reasons surprisingly not related to that guy, I quit and made the mistake of thinking I was free. For I went back to the restaurant one day wanting fast food to eat. He was at the window when I went to pay, and he was telling me how he decided to start DMing, and he was really enjoying it. I thought it was good for him, actually. Until a few months later when I went back for more food. He wasn't at the window, but when he noticed my car, he came over in a hurry, practically flinging himself at the window. OP, I need you to start DMing my game for me. I took a moment and just, what? I need you to start DMing my game for me and I can start playing a character. No? Why not? While there are many normal issues with demanding someone else DM your game for you, I don't know who your players are, their characters, their backstories. I don't know what game you're running, if it's homebrew or module. I don't even know your house rules for the game. The fact you came with a demand instead of politely asking me. I just opted for, I'm in too many games myself right now. And thankfully, I haven't had an encounter with him like that since. I've actually moved states now and hope his players are having fun. Whoa, this guy is like that guy of movie monsters. Just when you think he's finished, jump scare. I wouldn't be surprised if OP moves states, goes to his local fast food restaurant, and boom, there's that guy just looking at him. Or, OP wakes up in the middle of the night and that guy is standing there watching him. With night vision goggles, of course. Then, when OP goes to work, that guy is there, hiding in the cubicle next door, just waiting to ambush OP with a new character concept. A dwarf, but he speaks all languages and has a Liger familiar and is the king of the gnomes. But don't worry, he's only level 1. Oh, OP goes for a prostate exam, and that is that guy working the camera. Okay, this is pretty fun. What else could that guy pop up to surprise OP doing? I'd love to hear your take on this, so shoot me off a message letting me know how that guy's going to surprise and haunt OP. In 2019 to 2020, I was part of a Storm King's Thunder campaign. 4 of us were pretty new to the game, but the DM and another player were very experienced and good friends. We are all over North America and Europe, so we used the Roll20 platform. Some of the details are foggy in my memory, but I'll try to be as close to reality as possible. This takes place over one long campaign and an attempted one-shot. Part 1. The Players. Jake, DM, very experienced player, and DM, cared about realism above all else. Craig, Ranger, an extreme min-maxer optimizer, largely our party leader, who dealt extremely high damage throughout the campaign, largely eclipsing the rest of us. Lila, Druid, first-time player who is very excited about the game and motivated to play. She created a very vivid backstory for her character, tried to get it woven into the narrative. Very smart player, fun to play with. She clearly cared about her character and put a lot of thought into her personality and features. Sarah, rogue, first time player, but very timid, happy to tag along. Jan, wizard, cool guy, fairly new to D&D, quite proactive, fun to play with. Myself, rogue, pretty new player, second campaign I'd ever played. Initially, very involved, especially in the role-playing, but gradually checked out and became very passive. At the time, I played an arcane trickster. It was not very powerful in combat. You'll understand why later. By the end, I tagged along because I liked the people. There were signs even before Session 0 that this campaign would be a grind. Every decision I made during character creation was scrutinized. Some abilities were not allowed because the DM deemed them overpowered. And I was not allowed to pick variant human because it was too much of a power boost. The DM insisted. It seemed to only be a problem for me. I wrote a backstory, but none of its components were referenced in the main story. In fact, the DM gave me a tie-in and told me some NPC might have some information, but after painstakingly interviewing him and trying to bribe him, trying to intimidate him, he gave nothing. Not even any indication that he had any information whatsoever. On the flip side, Craig never seemed to have limitations imposed on him. Early in the campaign, he was regularly dishing out 40 plus range damage on his turn, and his character was somehow always an important linchpin to the narrative. The DM also decided that we would use the gritty realism rules. Long rests would take a week. Short rests would take 8 hours. Everything else would be realistic too. The first few sessions were fun. The DM was very good at describing what was happening, gave life to the various NPCs we met along the way, though Craig was very much monopolizing the game with his bombastic persona, establishing him as the de facto leader of our party, and he frequently rebuffed and disagreed with other players to the point where Sarah quickly stopped trying to argue with him. Eventually, I also submitted to it, because he was constantly proven right. He'd always pushed for the murder hobo route, and he was constantly vindicated when attempts at any other approach fell flat, either due to the DM personally not being swayed by our attempts at diplomacy, or the very high skill checks he set. So we fought and killed everything, going multiple sessions between long rests. This meant that our wizard would regularly spend multiple 6+ hour sessions with no spell slots and no way to get them back. I was playing an arcane trickster, and none of my spells were effective anyways, because the enemies almost always had some way to determine that illusion magic was illusion magic or to circumvent everything I did. Mirror images were obvious. Everyone saw me when I was invisible. Any attempt at creative solutions to problems was met with, "No, it doesn't work." NPCs were always too smart to fall for our tricks, too angry to be reasoned with, etc. Meanwhile, our ranger continued to obliterate everything in his way. When we eventually got the privilege of getting a long rest, we each had to come up with which downtime activities we'd be up to during that week. Most of the time, it was inconsequential flavor, with no impact on the game. However, on a few occasions, between games, I tried to come up with something more interesting and tried to involve some of the other players. You know, I too have looked at this game about magic, elves, and dragons and thought to myself, you know what this game needs? More boring reality. Wait, maybe I'll come up with my own TTRPG with blackjack and hookers, and I'll call it Real Boring Life. No, that's not right. No one's going to buy that. Ooh, let's call it No Dungeons and Zero Dragons. ND and ZD. It just rolls right off the tongue. First off, we must get rid of other races. Elves, not on my watch. You can only be human. And not the super cool human that comes with a feat. Too overpowered. Nope, just normal run-of-the-mill humans. Now, obviously these humans can't do magic, unless we're talking pulling a rabbit out of a hat or card tricks, so nothing useful. And if they do magic, it takes a month for their imaginary spells to come back. Now, they can't really go into dungeons because in real life, dungeons aren't really that big for the most part. But they could go into office buildings and explore that. Turning in TPS reports would be a must, like actually filling them out and turning them in. I think my new system is going to be a hit. Well, at least I know of one DM that would appreciate it. I came up with an elaborate plan to try and scam a scummy merchant we had interacted with by selling him some useless magical bauble for a high price, some party trick item. The scam involved performing something that seemed impossible for him to get interested in, this powerful magic item, then making a slick sales pitch, giving a demonstration using my arcane trickster magic with the help of Sarah, who also played a rogue. Between the pitch, magic, and our two sleight of hands, it couldn't possibly fail. Also, we were wearing a pin showing that we're heroes of Brian Shandor. And we were wearing disguises. It was a mini heist for a small amount of gold. The whole thing was creative and solid. He asked us to roll 4 different checks. Performance check, greater than 20. My sleight of hand check, greater than 20. Sarah's sleight of hand check, greater than 20. Persuasion check, less than 10. The NPC recognized the bauble as a cheap party trick and laughs at us. He'll pay us 5 silver for it, half of its wholesale value. How fun. Nothing ever works. It would have been fun, and we would have made a small amount of gold during our otherwise tedious and useless 1-week rest. Throughout the campaign, we never had gold. We never could buy anything of value. After many months meandering about, up north being led around by Craig, we made our way to Mirabar, then Luskin. Upon arrival, we do the usual at the inn, try to gather some information. Then we decide to run some errands. We walk out of the inn and split up. After we're some distance from each other, we're ambushed. 5 or 6 thieves jump our wizard and druid. By that time, I'm like 150 feet away from them, so I try to dash towards them. The DM goes, "Why? How would you know they're being attacked?" They didn't say they yelled. On their next turn, they yell out for help. 2 to 3 turns later, the rest of us start arriving on the scene. By that time, our wizard is down and the druid is barely alive, so we try to assist. On one of his turns, one of the thieves decides to attack our downed wizard instead of fighting, permanently killing our wizard. We have no gold. We have no scrolls. No way to revive him. Petty thieves in a city killed a level 5 to 6 wizard aided by a druid. Out of nowhere with no warning. Needless to say, Jan is miffed. He spends the rest of the session doing nothing, sitting along as we fail to bring his character back to life. DM doesn't throw us a bone. Our wizard is perma-dead from a nothing fight in an area that seemed safe. We bury him. Lila and me try to make it a solemn moment. We've lost a friend unceremoniously. Craig is making light of the situation, essentially pissing on our friend's corpse. Next session comes around. Jan made a bard, gave him a fun personality. We get to meet him and wander into Neverwinter Woods on a side quest that, to my understanding, is not from the Storm King's Thunder book. This homebrew takes us to a little encampment with caged animals and clearly evil cultists. We eavesdrop and obviously they're up to no good. By then, we know the only good approach is violence, so we attack a group that seems manageable. A Medusa-type creature comes out of the building unexpectedly, and just having her in our field of vision causes a very difficult skill check to avoid petrification. On the very first turn, our druid and our bard get petrified, and they're out of the fight. At this point, we're heavily metagaming, running around structures to avoid seeing her by using the top-down view of the map. We end up barely surviving. 2 of us petrified, 2 are down, and I'm barely alive. I get the 2 down players up. The petrified characters are petrified. Permanently. We spend an inordinate amount of time looking around the encampment to find a solution, but nothing. The statues weigh 800 pounds and they're brittle. We cannot safely transport them. Our druid is gone. Our new bard didn't last a single session. We continue on to Tribor. I don't even know why. I don't care. We try to find a greater restoration skull in Tribor. It would cost 5 times our combined amount of gold, and is held by extremely powerful, secretive, hard to find wizards. Well, to put it simply, we can't get a scroll. We can't afford it. We can't find it. We can't barter for it. We can't fight for it. We need 2 of it. By the next session, our druid creates another character, one she was much less into, and we start going through the motions. Our former wizard, former bard of less than 1 session, also made another character, making sure it wasn't reliant on long rests. We carry on. Craig continues to obliterate everything. We make it to the end of the campaign. It was grueling and annoying. There was a whole arc where me and the other rogue were sent to prison for multiple sessions for trying to steal a quest item from a manor in some city, despite another elaborate plan involving invisibility and stealth and a scroll of silence. Despite decent rolls, solid role-playing / decision-making, and level 9 rogues. Elite city guards were on point that day, I guess. Nothing ever works. Alright, call me crazy, but I got a question. If nothing ever works, why continue? This story is a perfect example of no D&D is better than bad D&D. Like, I cannot think of a reason for the bard / wizard to come back to the game. DM did him dirty, and he pulled up for seconds? Then thirds? Why would anyone, with the possible exception of Craig, remember him, the DM's pet? Why would anyone do anything with this DM? Are they masochists? Good DMs are not that hard to find. I've played with many of them, and yeah, I've also had my share of stinkers. Well, maybe more than my share. But I would have walked away from this table the second the DM said long rest take a week. Not because long rest take a week, though that would really bite, but because that just shows how he's going to be the rest of the campaign. I think OP summed it up perfectly here. Nothing ever works. Part 2. The Players. Lila, DM. First time DMing. She wrote her own one-shot from top to bottom. Painstakingly built Roll20 assets, maps, characters, laid everything out. Wrote a narrative. She commissioned some pieces of art, fetched other free assets online, did a fantastic job of building up the world. The campaign had a super cool and intriguing name like The Stonehold Incident, but cooler and better. Jake, neutral evil. Craig, Sarah, Jan, myself. All playing whatever classes. Doesn't matter. Storm King's Thunder ruined D&D for me. But Lila had a story to tell, one that she wrote herself and clearly cared about. For weeks we'd been hearing about the effort she'd been pouring into it. Our party is ushered into a fascinating world full of mystery. We find strange substances that don't belong. Mist floating around in ways that we've never seen before. She describes it in a way that is evocative and feels right. After some world building, we reach a town and immediately it's clear that something isn't right. The people are behaving as if possessed, and they're not allowing themselves to die. Craig decides to take the lead. He wants to help the people of the village. Jake disagrees. It's a waste of time. If these people are mind-controlled, it's their fault. After some arguing, he punches Craig's character. Craig thinks it's funny. He punches back. They ask if PvP is allowed. She allows it with a clear sigh of disapproval. Everyone's energy is telling them to stop. Out of character, I plead with them to stay in line. We move on from it, roaming around town, looking for some answers. We hear that the first people who started behaving strangely were at the mayor's house, so we proceed to that mansion. As Sarah, Jan, and myself investigate strange things in the house, we make our way upstairs. Meanwhile, the other two keep bickering downstairs. The tension builds up as we clearly approach some answers and potentially a fight. Suddenly, my character gets attacked by something unseen. I yell out for help, and the other two run up the stairs. I don't remember exactly what prompted it, but once in the stairs, they started PvPing again. By now, all 3 players were pleading with them to stop, but they were deep in the weeds of their role play. They thought it was the funniest thing, as they rolled spells and attacks at each other. Meanwhile, the rest of us are fighting a powerful Oni, and for some reason the house is set on fire. I don't recall if it was part of the scenario, or if the two players fighting each other set the structure on fire. The three of us end up being unable to defeat the Oni, and it results in a TPK. Lila never complained, but she outright refused to run it again. I can't blame her. 5 years later, I haven't gotten over how disrespectful and unapologetic they were. "That was fun," they said as we ended the session. I'll never know what the Stonehold incident was. Wow. Well, color me surprised. Who would have thought Jake would be as dogshit of a player as he was a DM? Show of hands? Oh, everyone. Fair enough. I have to ask, once again, OP, why did you play with these people? I mean, it does sound like the majority of the group were cool people, but it only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch, and you all had two. I know quitting can be stressful for some people, especially the confrontation part, but there is no way it would be any worse than actually playing with these goobers. But enough from me. What do you think? Which story was your favorite? Or least favorite? You know what I mean. I'd love to hear from you in comment form. Likes are always appreciated, as are subs if you're new around here. But in any case, thank you so much for watching, and especially for making it to the end. And as always, play your character. Don't let your character play you.